karma is a feedback from life to you, which means that if there is no karma, I wouldn't know what I need to fix in life.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Yellow Door podcast. I am so grateful that you've chosen to invest this time and energy to listen, learn and grow. I partner with you in transforming your being, work and relationships. My guests on the podcast help us gain new perspectives, challenge our existing beliefs, and also help us learn from their own experiences so that we can unlock growth at the point of life that we are at. My guest today has infectious energy and presence. She is a dance-crazy, people-loving artist with a quirky aesthetic. She is a full-time artist and dance instructor based in Paris. From being a gold medalist in fashion design to participating and representing India in art residencies and exhibitions at UNESCO and having her work featured at the Louvre during Prime Minister Modi's visit to Paris, she's had an incredibly exciting few years. My absolute pleasure and joy in bringing to you our guest today on the podcast, Poonam Malpani. Welcome to the podcast, Poonam. How are you feeling today? Excited?
Very excited, a little bit nervous, but very, very excited.
I'm so glad to hear that. I've worn color today and I just felt like doing it. So clearly your energy is spilling over already.
I'm so happy to be here. So now I'm talking to you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Poonam, it's really been such a delight watching you grow personally, professionally. You know, I've known you for a few years and you've created something from scratch, which is fascinating. It's been over 10 years now that you accompanied your husband to Paris for his MBA and built a brand of your own in a country where you don't speak the language, you don't have a work permit, and you made your passion come alive and you earn an income through it. So I can't wait to dive into your process. Really looking forward for all of us to learn from what worked for you, what didn't work for you. A lot to chat about, I know.
Thank you, Sonam. Thank you so much. There's a lovely thing to say, actually. You know, I don't realize it myself, but when I hear others say it, and especially someone that I know, and I know you personally, and I've learned so much from you myself about mindfulness, about spirituality, about the amazing things that you're doing. So I'm very excited to talk to you about it, Sonam.
Awesome. So before we get into all of that, I think let's dive back a little bit into what your journey was like growing up. Tell us a bit more about
that. Growing up. I think ever since I remember being Sonam, I remember being an artist. I remember because I was also born in a family of artists from both my mom and my dad's side of the family. They were into printing of saris. So, you know, like a 5-meter long cloth, which is like a big canvas in front of you. And I remember discussing that ever since I was like born, like, you know, discussing the colors, discussing what, you know, discussing with my dad, what he's going to do today. So that was one. I was born in a family of artists and I had my calling really, really soon. Like, you know, I think by the time I was about 5 or 6, I knew that I loved art. I knew that I loved sports. I knew that I loved to dance. And I was always that girl in school. I was a school bunker. But my mom was gracious enough, you know, she would let me stay home sometimes, even twice a week, because I would just hide inside my room and create art. You know, I would paint my windows. I would paint the doors of the room. I would paint the walls of the room. I would express myself, and my mom understood that because, you know, my dad was an artist, a big artist, and she understood that feeling inside of me that needed to be expressed, and, you know, she let me be. And then I studied at NIFT, National Institute of Fashion Technology, for 3 years. Of course, I went into fashion because I had a fascination for colors and clothes and, you know, art. So I've been born in Calcutta, born and brought up in Calcutta. I studied there until I was about 21, 22. And after that, I left Calcutta, went to Mumbai to get a job at an export house, which is also very exciting. So I worked there for a year, and that's where I met my husband. And, you know, then we came to Paris from there. So yeah, this is how I was since I was a child.
Thank you for sharing that. And that just shows, right, the influence that we have subtly from, how we grow up, what surrounds us. I think you've been fortunate to kind of figure
Completely
that
been
out
very.
early. Yeah. And having got the chance to express yourself.
And like you said, your childhood shapes you so much. Sonam, you yourself talk about your parents being into yoga, your parents being into Buddhist chanting, or the things that they were into. Obviously, that is why you're being able to do what you're doing, which is so offbeat. It's so fantastic that you're diving into spirituality, something that I think education in the world needs so much at the moment. So much at the moment. So yeah, I was very lucky
Yeah.
to have open-minded parents, and uh, yeah, man, they gave me a lot of like if for example, just saying, for a parent, now that I've turned into a parent, I think about what my mom did for me, much more than what I would be grateful for before I had the child. I remember when I was about 7 years old, Sonam, I had gone to a friend's house for a play date, and her dance teacher had showed up, and she was learning Indian classical dancing from this guy. And I saw this guy full of energy and smiling and graceful and happy and, teaching her dance. And I was like, and I asked him, I remember asking him, are you really this happy when you're dancing, or are you faking it? And I remember he said, I'm really this happy when I'm dancing. So I held his hand and I said, would you just come to my place and, talk to my mom, because I really want to learn dancing from you. And I remember, Sonam, I knocked at the door and my mom opened and she was like, who are you with? Like, who's dropping you home? And I said, I'm going to learn dancing from this guy. And she didn't think twice. She said, okay, you got it home. Let's do this. I learned dancing from him for 15 years. Sonam, I'm still in touch with him. He shaped me as a person. Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Poonam. Thank you for sharing, the backdrop that brings you to where you are today. I think that will give a context to us understanding you better. Poonam, you talked about moving to Paris. Talk me through what went into the decision making of moving into Paris. Now, this was your husband pursuing his MBA, you supporting him in doing that and deciding to move to Paris, move to a new place with him. What was that decision making like? What went through? Talk us through it.
It's funny, when I think about it and you ask me this question, it is supposed to be such a big move, right? You move your entire foundation and you go to another country altogether. But I think for me, it was much easier than, that it was easier to take a decision to come to Paris. I'll tell you why, Sonam. I think first, when I met my husband, I was working in Bombay. And I remember within 40 days of meeting each other, we decided to get married. So I knew that I had met someone like a soulmate, someone who I felt so comfortable with. In the first 10 days, I knew, oh my God, I've known this guy somewhere. Like I was so comfortable with him. So that bond was so strong, and that I've known him for 14 years, been married for 12 years now. The bond is still the same. I think we're only growing deeper. Touch wood. But what happened was, once we got married, I remember Nitin's my husband's name, and he asked me whether I want to stay in Calcutta and continue with my business, or, I want to travel with him. And he said, I don't mind doing an MBA. The first thing that came to my mind was like, I don't want to live in Calcutta. I want to see the world. I want to go see Europe. And who says no to Paris? It's the fashion capital. So I had studied at NIFT, and I thought, I'm going to the fashion capital. I'm going to make it big with him. I'll let him study, and I'm going to figure out stuff for myself, and I'll figure out something. And I was also 23, Sonam, so back now, if I had to take a decision now, there would be so many things that you would, look at, so many things that you think about. But back then, I think it was just that excitement bit that I said, okay, let's do Paris, because no one says no to Paris. And then when I came to Paris, I think that's when I realized what had I done. Because, in India, everybody, it was great. I did well in school. I was that girl, everybody knew in school and college. I was used to being appreciated, used to being praised, used to all that luxury. I was such a brat because, parents are there, support system. There is a chauffeur waiting for you. You don't know, you have your food ready. All of those things happen, right? And you speak the language, everything is taken care of back at home. But when you come to a new country altogether, Paris sounds great when you're thinking of a vacation. It's romantic, it's beautiful. But when you leave your country and you come live in a country where no one knows you, you are a nobody to anybody, because my NIFT degree wasn't even valid here. They didn't care about studying. If I had studied in the best school of best college in India, I didn't speak the language at all. People are different, culture is different, food is different. You've got to do everything from scratch. So I feel like now that I've been in Paris for 11 or 12 years, I feel like I'm 12 years old, Sonam. I think it was such a shock. I took about 4 or 5 years to just get used to the scene, just get used to my life and ground myself here and then start something. So I took about a good 4 to 5 years. But having said all of this, I have to also mention that it's pretty fantastic to be a foreigner in a country, because you're not supposed to follow the French rules. And I was not supposed to follow the Indian rules as well. So that gave me freedom to build my own life, build my own life my way, take the values and culture from India, take the values and cultures of Paris and European culture in general, and fuse it together and make something of my own.
I think that makes a difference, right? Having that mindset makes it also easy to adapt to whatever the circumstances be. And a lot of people find themselves in the same situation that you're in, where the spouse is either moving for work or moving to study and creating a life of their own in parallel to that. And you've done that so well. You've talked about the change. Was it easy to adapt? How long do you feel it took you to kind of make Paris your own, or come into your own in that city? What would you say to that?
A long time, Sonam. Like I know, if I know myself a little bit, I'm 37 now, and I feel like I'm getting to know myself a bit more every day, and I'm loving turning old. But I realize I'm very even when I'm very aware of the fact that change is the only constant and nothing is permanent and everything is temporary. I'm very, very, and I think a lot of us have trouble adapting to change. Also because I was born in one city in Calcutta, and I lived there. My entire family lived there, from my mom's side, my dad's side, my entire family lives in Calcutta. So I was so used to that cocoon and that nest of mine that it was difficult for me, man, to adapt to a change this drastic. I am not very okay with change, though I know I have to do it. And it takes a lot of courage out of me to adapt to change. So I took my own sweet time. This was also the time when I just moved here. It was also the time I'd lost my dad, and I was very close to him artistically. I think we had a soul connection, like he's my guru. He's someone who's taught me so much about art. So much of what I know is because of my dad, not because of my schooling, but because of my dad. So that was another thing. And like I said, the life was so different here. And my husband was doing an MBA. He had his friends. I had to find my niche. I had to find my friends. I didn't want my husband's friends are of course my friends, but I wanted my own segment. I had to learn the language. I had to begin to get out and realize that it's okay to make a mistake while I'm speaking in French, because, the fear of judgment, the fear of rejection, what if I didn't know how to begin. Like I was still soaking in everything, learning how to cook, taking care of your house. I took about 5 years, Sonam, to really get myself to even realize, oh, I can do this, And then I remember a time I was doing all of this, right? I was learning the language. I was trying to figure out what I can do, because I knew that what I was good at was dancing and art. Like I knew that I couldn't do anything else. This was for sure. Like I was just trying to figure out how I could do this to make money off it, to be able to support myself and family. And I remember about 5 years after, when I was speaking the language, and I'd just, I think, given birth to my son after, about 5 or 6 years after I came here. And that is when I realized that I have to go to school and, to his school and speak in French, and I have to get him enrolled in all these creches, and I have to, so I was like on top of my game. And this was the time where Nitin, my husband, bought me a canvas, and he said, you know what, until you figure out, why don't you take out all your madness instead of on me, take out all the madness on the toile, on the canvas. And I said, okay, this sounds great, because if I have a canvas, I'm self-sufficient. If I make a painting, I don't need a tailor or an embroiderer or a printer to finish my product. So that was the first thing that came to my mind. And I was like, yeah, why not, man? Let me just make a painting. And I remember I made a painting. And my first painting was of Shiva. And then I continued to paint until I finished about 20 canvases, because I was so excited about it, So I made about 20 canvases. And then one of my very good friends, she's a musician here in Paris, she said, I'm going to find you a gallery. Your stuff is really good. You have to exhibit. So I said, okay, I don't know. But all the friends that I knew, they came together and we put up the paintings and we invited people. And some people came. Like a lot of people turned up for my first exhibition. This was in 2013, if I'm not mistaken. And I sold 5 paintings out of 19 or 20. And that was the first time I realized This is the first time I'm doing something and I'm getting paid for something that I want to practice. So
What
this was the
amazing.
beginning.
Tell those who are listening, what is the ByPoonam brand today? What all does it include? We get a snapshot of what you're doing.
Yeah. It's funny because I just don't do one thing. And that's another thing, as an artist, when I started to network a lot, this was the time where I was meeting other artists, networking, asking questions to a lot of different people, how do I get by? What do I do? How do I start as an artist? How do I live as an artist? And I remember meeting a couple of, no offense here, with all due respect, a couple of very big artists here in Paris. And I remember at this time, I had just begun to dance, give dance lessons in a dance school. I had begun body painting with a friend. So I was doing body painting because, body painting excites me, Sonam, because it's live model that I'm painting on, live canvas that I'm painting on. So I'm exchanging that live energy. It excites me a lot. So I was doing body painting already. I had made some cushion covers from the prints that I had already painted, I was already dancing. So when I went to meet these artists, they told me, you have to concentrate on one thing. Like, if you have to become the master of one thing. And the one thing that I know about myself, Sonam, is it's also probably because I have a lot of respect for people who do, like ballet dancers or Indian classical dancers, who do one thing for their lives. They dive in so deep into it and they become the master of that one craft. I've always had so much immense respect for people like this because I'm not this person. I realized for my soul to feel happy and content, I need to do many, 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 many things, like dancing, body painting, teaching dance, teaching meditation sometimes, painting on canvases, painting on the ceiling, painting on the wall, painting on furniture, making handmade crafts in the house, like origami, anything. So ByPoonam name came from there. My husband said, because you do so many things, it can be cakes by Poonam, or art by Poonam, or paintings by Poonam, or body painting by Poonam. So I said, yeah, this sounds good. This sounds doable. So the one thing that I recognized about myself when the artists were coming and telling me that you should concentrate on one thing, it just wasn't coherent with me. It worked for them, but I had to realize that this wouldn't work for me because I'd get damn bored if I just do one thing. So that's when I decided, and it worked for me, Sonam, because through body painting, I was getting a little bit of money. Through dance, I was getting a little bit of money. Through selling a painting, I was getting a little bit of money. Because selling painting isn't something that is the first on people's list, right? You have to build trust. You have to become that big an artist to sell more often, which is touch wood happening to me right now. But back then, it would be like one painting in 2 months, and that couldn't suffice my bills of buying more canvases, buying more supplies. So I realized that all of this was working for me, and then this just became my brand, Sonam. I think at this point, I'm doing how do I say, cushion covers and accessories and scarves and paintings, and I plan to do prints. I plan to do print on umbrellas, print on table mats. I plan to do all of this. So I think this is what my brand is. I'm a little bit of everything that I like to do.
And dance.
And
Dance too, right? So teaching dance in Paris and now online as well.
Yes. So online dance started during Corona, man. Dance is something that I do to get away from art, because there's so much that happens in art and there's so much that's happening in the mind. I have to get into my body again. And that's when I dance. And dance has also been a very important part of my life. I've always danced and made art. Around this time when I was trying to monetize my hobbies, I had written to a school in Paris, which is one of the biggest dance schools in Paris, Bollywood dance schools in Paris. And the woman was pregnant. So I went to meet her. She's a beautiful dance teacher. So she was pregnant around this time. And she said, you know what, why don't you take a couple of my classes? I've seen you dance. I trust you. Why don't you do this? So I started from there. I got a lot of experience back, then how to deal with people, how to speak in French, how to let go of the fear and, be confident, and all of that happened. Then a couple of my friends said, why don't you start your own classes, have a studio and just do, once a week, and we're going to join you. And, I had about 3 people and it would pay for my rent of the studio. So I started like that, Sonam. But I realized over here, people think Bollywood dancing is really exotic and graceful, which it is, Back in India, everybody can dance. But here, Bollywood dancing is very new, very exotic. Many people showed up, Sonam. So I was like, I did not expect it. And now I'm giving a lot of workshops. I'm teaching online. I'm having a class. That class is still going on. It's been 3 years now. I have regular students. I have many students,
It's so fascinating, right? Like you described, I think what fulfills you, you've said, is this variety of things, and it's all creative. How do you define creativity? What's creativity for you?
It's such a beautiful question. I love this question. Creativity to me, Sonam, is authentic expression of your soul. It is as simple as doing what you love and expressing yourself authentically. When you do that, I feel like you connect to a higher force. When you express your truth with your soul, be it whatever, man, it can be cleaning up, it can be watering your plants, it can be cooking, it can be even on a Zoom call, making a fun title, like, or giving a surprise to people who are sitting in a corporate meeting, like, I don't know, saying something fun. It's just being original. And how do you be original? By expressing your soul. Because your soul and someone else's soul will never be the same, is never the same, and that is why you say, oh my God, what you do so original, because it's my soul that's expressing it. I don't know if I'm answering the question or if I'm going on a tangent, but yeah.
No, that's so beautiful. That's a beautiful take on it. And, as you were speaking, what came to mind is that in life, as we're going about life, we're being creative because you're responding to situations in the moment. Again, this myth around what we think is creativity versus how broad creativity can be. You described a Zoom call. It could be somebody launching a new product line, or you're solving stakeholder issues, though that's creativity too.
Completely. Most people say, how are you so creative? And I'm just like, dude, everybody is creative. Like, you don't realize that you're creative, but everybody is creative. You just have to make sure that you are doing what you love, or try to do what you love most of the time, and express yourself authentically. When you're doing that, you're being creative already.
Poonam, what made you embark on this journey? Because again, you described how you started out, and everything that happened, whether you call it synchronicity, things coming together, or you just trying different things out, certain things working out, and you kind of going with that flow. But again, none of this comes easy. So I want to get into some of the tough stuff, because we're all trying different things. There are a lot of people out there who want to make their passion transform into something that could make income for them. So maybe let's talk about this in two stages. I would like to hear from you, what made you take that first, say, 10 or 20 steps working through ByPoonam, and then I would like to also understand what kept you going at it, because you've been at it for a while now. If you could break that process down for us.
So now I'm going to try to answer this question. So I think the one thing, Sonam, because I was a spouse of a guy who was doing an MBA, I always used to believe that I'm very dumb at understanding physics or maths or studying, and in general understanding language. I used to really believe that I could, but I knew that I was great at sports and art, and I would channelize all my energy there. But somewhere I would feel a little like less than, the other people around me, because they would just seem to get it, get their everything right. Only later, while I was growing up, I started to realize that what creativity was helping me do was become emotionally intelligent, which we don't talk in schools and which we don't talk about in general in life, not too much. And I realized that language was just a set of symbols that I had to understand. So I think more of the schooling that I did was later part of my life when I came to Paris, when I really just started to understand all of this. Why I'm saying this is because when I was surrounded by these MBAs, these genius minds, I would look at them in awe, but I was also getting surer and surer that this is not something that I can do. This is not something that's meant for me. I knew that I had to do what I was good at, because it came the most effortlessly to me. I also thought that there was no question about it in my head, right? That was one thing. The second was when my first exhibition happened and I got some money. That gave me a lot of confidence. So now, I was like, this can be completely explored. That's when I started saying, okay, how do I go about it? Yes, I make the painting, but after that, what? So then I started putting myself out there in social media. Like you guys have seen how much of myself I put out there, like of my art, of what I'm doing. And, when people would see that, they'd call me, like people who would connect to it would call me and say, are you interested in a collaboration, for example? So I would always say, oh my God, yeah, collaboration's great, with different artists, with musicians, with dancers, with videographers, photographers. So that happened. then, I would never say no to opportunities. I grabbed onto a lot of opportunities, going 2 hours away to teach in a school where I wasn't getting really paid. And, I said, it's all right. I'll voluntarily do something because this is practice for me. The one thing that kept me going, Sonam, was it was difficult to follow this path because no one else around me was doing it. But yet it felt very true. It felt very correct. It felt very right. And I never gave up hope on myself. I had that belief deep down, even in my shittiest days, the worst days when I'm feeling like I can't do anything and I'm not good for this and I will never be able to make money. And, I will never be able to get over my money block or my artist block and, all of those blocks that come with being an artist. There was always this gut feeling inside me that I know I'm meant to do this. Like a bigger purpose kind of a thing. Like it's always there. It's never gone. So I did a lot of work, Sonam. I did a lot of work. I did a lot of trial and testing. I figured out how to make my videos. I figured out where to get my paints. I spoke to many, many different artists. I met many, many people. I made a lot of fool of myself. I made many, many mistakes. But every time I got up and I said, okay, new day, let's start. So I don't know if I answered your question. But then, of course, there's also, when you believe in something that you do, like when you believe in the madness, I feel like the universe opens ways, a lot of ways. You just have to jump on the opportunities, I think. You just have to recognize the opportunity and jump on it. And that's when your intuition helps you. Like that first feeling that you get when you meet someone, should you collaborate? Should you not collaborate? Should you make a big painting? Should you not? My intuition really, really helped me. And this belief in myself, which again comes from my parents, because they always believed that, I was capable of doing something bigger and better.
When you talked about this briefly, you touched upon the challenges of people around you not doing the same stuff. And, what questions does that bring up? Because realistically speaking, that's your external environment. People will say stuff to you. They'll ask you questions about, does this make sense? You have XYZ skills. Can you do something else with those skills? Can you earn more money with a different job or a different profession, different industry?
Sorry.
Just wanted to hear about your thoughts and what were the challenges around that? What did you hear? How did you think through it? How did you overcome that?
Yeah, there's always, because the people are not doing the same thing, you just are always scared that whether this path that you're taking will lead you somewhere, because everyone's making a lot of money. They are in great jobs, they're doing very well for yourself. And you're just kind of a lost puppy when you begin and you're like, oh my God, there's this fear of rejection. There's this fear of judgment of people around you. Yet at the same time, there's so much respect, Sonam. It's so funny. It's so, it's so contradictory because there are so many people who met me who'd be like, but how are you making your money? And yet at the same time, they are in awe of what I'm doing because they can feel that I'm somewhere happy about what I'm doing. I'm not cribbing about my job, which a lot of people around me would do, just drained out of their daily 9-to-5 job and doing the same thing and working for someone else. So I think the one thing that kept me going was I was working for myself, which mattered so much to me. I feel like when I'm expressing myself creatively, I'm growing personally. You believe in personal development. This is what you're doing, Sonam. All these anxieties and all these challenges that I went through, I think every time I worried about, what are people going to say and, the fear of judgment and the fear of rejection, I tend to come back to work. I tend to immerse myself in work. And I think that's what I did. That's what I have done. Like in some way or the other, I've always found work to help me get out of these fear-based thoughts.
No, definitely. I think it brings up, the entire conversation around self-worth, and it's work in progress, right? A lot of times, none of us are, perfectly on this journey. There will be things that will come your way that will question all of this, your awareness about yourself, your worthiness. How do you view yourself? And you have to work through it day in and day out.
I got self-worth. Yeah, man. I think everybody in the world to some degree is going through that Sonam self-worth issue. It's so big. It's absolutely, man.
The why, when, like you described for you as well, the why is so strong of what you do and why you do it. And and you have that clarity that this is something that you're meant to do. And I think that why also helps in keeping grounded with the path that you're taking. Poonam, the other thing that I'd really like to hear about is the role that relationships play. If you could tell us, how were the closest relationships around you taking shape as you were going through this journey? How did interplay happen between personal, professional? I don't know if you look at these two differently, or is it an integrated part? How was that evolving as ByPoonam was evolving?
This is a fantastic question, Sonam, because I live off relationships, man. I think for me, the most important thing in life, really, I love people and I love diving deep with people. I have many, many friends. I'm very blessed to have a huge family now. I have two families, one my husband's family and my family. And I have a beautiful son and I have a lovely relationship with my husband, touch wood. Like I can say this without any qualms. I really do feel this, Sonam. I feel like I'm an amalgamation of all the people that I have met who've inspired me. Because whoever I look at and they inspire me, and most people do, right? Like everyone's got something unique about themselves. Everyone that I meet. So I tend to take that and I, get inspired and I'm like, I want to do that. I want to try that. So I think that's one thing. Relationships are very inspiring to me. I don't think I can look at these two differently, my personal and my professional life, because my personal life is my professional life, because I'm constantly dancing, constantly making art, constantly meeting my clients for coffee. And then I get, close to my clients and then we do dinners and meals together. And then they come back to buy more stuff and then we dance together and then we party together. And then it's a very, very informal kind of a relationship that I have with my clients. And I love that, Sonam, because it is very important for me to know my client, be it my student in dance, because I can help them in some way. Dance, I almost look at dance as therapy. There are so many students who come to me and they're like, this session is like therapy for me. And I'm like, for me too. So it's important to know what they're going through. We really dive in deep about what's going on in their personal life, what is bothering them, what is being heavy in their hearts. And the same thing goes with my art clients. What do they need? Which color do they need? Which area of their life they want to, they want to invite abundance. They want to invite love. And, so I set that intention before I start the painting and then I go ahead with that. The one relationship that I would like to mention is of mine with my husband. It is amazing what a free soul he is. How much support, Sonam, I've gotten from him. I've heard from many people. This was 10 years ago. Of course, now people don't say it, but they're like, why don't you find yourself a job? So many people would say, so that you can get a constant income, find yourself a job. But my husband, who was directly influenced by this, never ever asked me to find a job. He just said, karo, which means keep going, keep doing your thing, keep doing your thing. It is fascinating to me, Sonam, that this guy is so free, is such a beautiful, calm soul, that he just let me be and he believed in me. That's all he did. And that is something that most people just don't get, don't get. Even when I followed him, he still tells me that thank you so much for coming here with me, So we've been in this together, Sonam, and I think I've been very blessed when it comes to relationships. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And it flows into what you do. It ignites you, it's supported you, it's really given you that push. I'm guessing on days when you've had your lows and you needed that.
Yeah.
But that brings me to spirituality, Poonam. Let's spend a bit of time on your spiritual journey, and we must talk about it. You've taken to a spiritual path a few years ago, and I know you're doing a bunch of different things now. What inspired that? How did that journey begin? Why did you see yourself going towards that? Why were you kind of seeking it? Talk us through how that happened.
Spirituality has changed my life for the better. About 32 years old, life falling apart, partying way too much, body giving up, all of these things were happening, getting irritated with Rudra, with Nitin, fighting a lot. And I knew that this was not me. This was not me. And that's when I came across, like YouTube channels and some leaders. So I started with Sadhguru and then I went on to Christina Lopes and so many other gurus. What happened, Sonam, here was I suddenly saw all of these things that they were talking about started making sense to me. They were answering a lot of questions that I had as a child inside of me. And then I said, how do I work towards it? Like whatever you say is great, but how do I achieve it? And that's when I got into meditation. Now, like people tell you, meditate, you will get your peace of mind. I had heard this all my life, but I didn't really care because everyone has the same answer, right? I can't meditate because my mind goes very crazy. Like I don't know how to meditate. And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a try. And I really seriously did give it a try. What I did was for the first 3 months, I sat down and I closed my eyes. And every time I'd sitting, my mind would go berserk with many, many thoughts. But I kept sitting, Sonam. I said, I've heard these leaders, there must be something. They're all great, Shakespeare says the same thing. And so many artists say the same thing. So there must be something in it. And I'm going to just sit and do it. Sonam, I think I took about 3 months to get to a state of, to get to a meditative state. What is a meditative state? When your mind is calm, when you're really connected to your higher self or the source or God or whatever you like to call it. It's a very calm, place. I took about 3 months to get there, but I sat down every day for 20 minutes, closed my eyes, and I said, I need to get this, I need to get to a point. What I started noticing in these 3 months was that I was feeling happy for no reason. That was the first thing that was happening. I was feeling happy. I was feeling motivated. Another thing that happened to me was my fear of, I don't even know what, of maybe, we were talking about how fear of judgment, fear of failure, all of this. It was little by little diminishing. It didn't matter to me as much as it mattered to me then, So meditation in itself as a practice brought me a lot of confidence to speak my truth kindly, to speak my truth, to be able to speak my truth, that I couldn't do earlier. And it's frustrating, sometimes you just get angry when you're wanting to say your truth because, and the ego is so big. So ego dissolution happened. Then I dived in deeper into, what is the energy system? What is our chakra system? We have 7 chakras. What are the chakras? What happens with color therapy? Because I work with so much colors. What happens when you see this color? Like blue is the calming color. Red is the color of fire. What are the 5 elements that the world is made of? So I really dived in deep with, reading a lot of books on psychology, reading a lot of books on chakras, about energy systems, about meditation. It has changed my life, Sonam. I feel like it is making me more and more confident in expressing myself more authentically. And it's helping me unlearn the things that I need to unlearn to find myself. There's a lot of clarity of mind. There's a sense of deep knowing. Your intuition becomes stronger. So I think meditation, as a daily practice, and I can now tell the difference. The days I don't meditate, I'm all over the place. The days I meditate, I know intuitively I'm like getting through the day happily and effortlessly. It's helped me immensely. Yeah.
And I was going to ask you how that you've already kind of answered, how that helped with your own process as an individual and with your creativity. Anything else that you felt in your, spirituality really brought in for you from the creative side of things? I know that you, there was a phase when you were painting gods and goddesses. Talk us through that. What was that journey like?
It makes you, I think, my meditation and my yoga practices, whatever I do, I think it makes me fiercer in really being able to say my truth. Like during Corona, I had this huge urge of making goddesses, Sonam. And I can't tell you, Sonam, when I sit to paint a Lakshmi or a Buddha or a Durga, I feel engulfed by this energy. I, for the first time as an artist, realized that, and it's difficult for an artist to also realize this, especially when we're not living in a world full of artists, I remember growing up and people would ask me, why is this painting so expensive? Why is art so expensive? I'm now understanding that process. I feel like when I have meditated, nicely during the morning and I sit with a painting, there is a stream of energy that runs through me. I had such a huge urge of doing a Lakshmi, and she engulfed me for 4 days. So I'm basically, they say, right, what you're putting life force in something that you're putting your energy into. So I, for the first time, realized that when I am connected to a higher source, I'm putting in that energy in that painting. So I'm literally making that painting come alive, through my hands. And I'm very, very lucky and grateful for this. But I need to be I need to know this when I'm making a painting, I need to constantly, I need to let the flow happen. And I need to know the power of art itself in general, about how if you look at Lakshmi, it would bring you abundance in your life. If you look at my painting Buddha, it would bring you some kind of peace, It will also reach the person it has to, like when I paint sometimes, Sonam, it is beautiful sometimes how I sell my paintings. I just do what my intuition tells me to do, and I do it, and I, try to put in as much as pure energy as I can, and it gets sold in like no time. And I have no idea what's happening, but someone's like, oh, I saw this painting and I really liked it and I want to buy it, So somewhere I feel like if you're doing something from your heart, from a place of purity, it reaches where it has to. It is making me more aware of my responsibility as an artist, about how I can help, how my art can help people. It's just not a decorative piece. It is a living piece of art, It can bring you something. It can bring you something that you don't even realize it's bringing you. But I need to be very aware of what intention I'm putting when I'm painting. I think that clarity happened with meditation so much, so much, so much.
So beautiful, Poonam. The other thing that came to mind is that did you feel that the meditation process or the entire concept of being in the present moment, of course it has its advantages, did you ever feel that it was counterintuitive to your creative process? How do you look at that? I know there's a lot of conversation around this, and that's the reason I wanted to get your take. What was your experience, having practiced meditation? How do you bring it together?
It's such a cool question, Sonam. We did speak about this a little bit earlier, and my take on it. let me try. As much as meditation has helped me to be in the present moment, earlier I would be in my thoughts, build castles in my air and say, I'm going to do this, I have this project, I have this idea. What meditation helps you do is, clear off the cloud and clear off the block that you're going through. And it helps you put things into action. So I think action is very, very important. Like being in the present moment and doing it, like thinking about it is one thing, which is also very important to me as an artist, thinking about the colors, daydreaming, being in the 5D, really thinking about imagining, visualization. But you can't just be there. And most artists are stuck there. So now trust me, if I was, if someone gave me a chance, I am a very action oriented person. And even then I love to be in my dream world. But I think meditation helps you cut the clouds and, pierce through the clouds and really get to doing something, getting into action and producing stuff. Because thinking about something and doing it, two very different things. When you're doing it, you realize you don't really know it. When you're thinking about it, you think you know it all. And when you're doing it, it's by trial and error and practice that you realize, oh my God, how you don't know anything and how you need to keep growing and keep growing and keep growing to where you want to get.
I asked you, because there is a lot of debate around this, and also myths in the fact that one shouldn't have thoughts, and that's not the purpose of, a lot of the meditations out there are not telling you to not have the thoughts. It's about observing sometimes with clarity that, this is what's happening. And again, like you described, taking that and then transferring that into actual stuff, taking action
completely on it. Like manifesting, right, Sonam? Like if I'm not visualizing and thinking, and if there's no action, how will the manifestation happen in your life? We live in the 3D world, man. And as an artist, I think this is very important. And for me to find this balance, it's still happening. I'm still finding this balance of being in the 3D world and being connected to the earth and being connected to life around me in general, meeting people and making the money and living a life that I want to live with my art and, all of that.
And there is research to point to the fact that meditation does enhance your creativity. It does switch on that divergent thinking capability that everyone has, but it kind of takes you to that so you can start looking at the bigger picture, start becoming more open about ideas. And I'm guessing that helps with taking that action that you need with everything that's happening in the mind space.
Completely. For me, meditation, Sonam, makes me know myself more. What am I about? What is it that I like? And once you know that, then there's no stopping. Yeah. Once you know what you like, then you just do what you like, right? But to get to know what you like is the thing, right? There is so many, we've been put in boxes, yeah. I mean, even during our school days or college days, everything was like that, right? You were put in a box, everyone's following the same rule, everyone's following the same decorum. And when you grow up, you realize not everybody likes the same thing, and I'm the biggest rule breaker ever in everything. I think I've done things very differently. So it gives you the confidence also to know yourself and to have the deep knowing that whatever you're thinking of is good for you. Is good for you, and in turn it's good for people around you also.
Absolutely. Self-awareness is such a big thing, right, that we see coming through with the practices that we do. And I think, as you described, even resilience on the other side of it. None of this is easy. I think as you're trying new things, as you're innovating, be it in any field, you're bound to have setbacks or failures. And then how do you kind of bounce back from that? And spirituality or any sort of meditation would go a long way. Any experience you've had on this that you'd like to talk about?
It's amazing, Sonam, because recently I heard that, karma is used as such a negative term. And when you say something happens, something bad happens to you, and you say, oh, I got my karma. And I would say the same thing. And suddenly, just a few days ago, I realized that karma is a feedback from life to you, which means that if there was no karma, I wouldn't know what I need to fix in life. And obviously, man, it's such a there's this universe that we live in, the galaxies and galaxies out there. You cannot comprehend the universe. So I think it's going to be a constant journey to understanding life and understanding happiness and towards enlightenment anyway. And more I'm understanding this every time I hit the rock bottom. I'm like, it shows you where you're going wrong. It's a feedback from life, and you have to learn this lesson to be able to again come up. And then again you fall down, and again you have to learn that lesson, and then you go up. It is always like this, man. Like, your life is like this. This is something that I have no control over my life anymore. Like, this is something, and this is why I think spiritual journey is such a difficult journey also, because you face your innermost demons and your fears and your darkness, and you think you're, stuck there, but it brings it up all on surface for you to realize where you have to work, a feedback from life, where you have to work. And the moment you know where you have to work, and if you work towards it, you're obviously going to achieve it. You're obviously going to, get there. If you understand, for example, you have this complex and you can't see it, you're blinded to it. Suddenly from meditation, you realize, oh my God, I have this complex, I have to work towards it. And then once you know your problem, you'll find a solution,
Absolutely. So beautifully summed up, Poonam. Any last closing thoughts as we wrap up our conversation?
Believe in your madness, guys, and do what you love, because it's going to take you a long way.
Thank you so much, Poonam. Thank you so much. I could feel your energy through this chat all the way from Paris. And of course, thank you so much for sharing your process and being candid and open through all the questions.
I hope I have helped some people out there. But Sonam, really, I really believe that whoever I'm with, they bring out the best in me. So it is all on you today. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk today. I'm really excited.
It's a joyous process for me to always have this conversation with you. Thank you all for listening and watching. For those of you who'd like to connect with Poonam, we will be sharing her handles and her contact points on the YouTube channel's description. And of course, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the Yellow Door Talks YouTube channel to not miss the next podcast or the video. Take care and be well.